Call your sponsor. Call your sponsor. Call your sponsor. Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
I think this is, I've actually been considering this question a lot of what is the filter that I'm looking at the world through, right? And I think for me, the process of program and recovery has been to like actually call out the filter that I'm looking, and then it's like removing that filter, or at least knowing it's there, because I didn't even know that there was the filter there.
Right.
You know, and so it's calling it out and seeing it, and then having this ability to see it differently and or in a different way. I love this reading the room thing because it's fascinating. My ex's children are on the spectrum, and some people on the spectrum can't read the room because they're not in touch with actual social cues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's just fascinating, just kind of seeing things through a different lens.
Yeah, I think so. And I just think that to me encompasses emotional sobriety, right? So just the fact that someone is sober and willing to look at, hey, how am I incorporating this? How can I learn more? How can I be more in tune with my surroundings? How can I actually be more in tune with myself and not be so in tune with my surroundings? Which is what I think a lot of people need to learn. You know, so many people think what they need to learn is, how can I focus more on what other people want from me? And how can I do better? And how can I be good? And it's like, no. How about going inside and focusing on what does authentic look like?
So I was in a meeting, and I don't know, I always hear the shit that it's like going through the book, right? The stuff that pops up out at me, however many times I've gone through that big book, different things pop up at different times because my awareness is shifting, I'm growing, or whatever, I'm changing. The thing that I keep hearing that seems to be coming up in all my meetings, actually, is this idea of being seen, being visible, right? Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. I think there's also this other piece of like, yeah, be invisible. Don't be seen, like just blend in, you know? And that has kind of been this thing that's been surfacing for me, where it's like, yeah, I'm seen, but not truly seen, right? Like there's still some guards that are there. And I wonder, like, is this something that you have worked on or are working on, that like, what is, and then how does the brain heart fall into this?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I honestly could barely wait to get on the podcast with you this week to talk about something that happened. And I was going to call you during the week. I may have tried. I think I tried. So my thing is the opposite of yours. So you're keeping all the cards to the vest, and I put all my cards on the table, and immediately within 5 minutes of knowing me. And what people don't understand is when they see all the cards, they've made a blood agreement that they will be with me forever and accept me as I am. And I would just like to be a little better about keeping my cards a little closer to the vest, you know, whereas you're like, I want to be opening my cards up more. And this is that equanimity. This is like that balance. Like we're growing in different ends to get to the middle. Right? Where it's a little bit of card showing, but not the whole thing. So I went to lunch with this vendor that I will be working with. She's younger than me, and we're at lunch, and here I am just telling my whole story. Just like I'm in a meeting, you know, about the husband relapsing, about me being so, I mean, the whole thing. And I'm like, I really want to have some mystery. I would like to stop telling everybody everything up front. And the trick was to love myself all the way home, even though I didn't show up in this new way that I'm wanting to show up.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's major growth. So did you go into that with like a prayer, a thing, like, or is this just something that you have that's basically running in the background of like, this is, Misty's mystery?
Misty's mystery is running in the background. It's a new way I want to show up. And I'm not like consciously thinking of it. That would be a good idea before I go into something, like saying a prayer and having a prayer ready for this before I go into situations, because it was just like, I'm going to show up in a new way. And then I don't. And then I beat myself up.
I know that.
And the trick was like, okay, don't beat yourself up. You didn't show up the way you wanted. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that you've identified we're the same on different ends of the spectrum, right? And that it's the equanimity and it's the balance, where we're both headed towards the center.
Right.
You're less cards, me is more card showing, and this vulnerability piece is still very difficult. I mean, I think like our relationship, it's helped me be less in my brain and less curated, and being more like spontaneous and, fly by the seat of my pants and not having to have everything so calculated and curated, which is what I'm used to. And that's like, was my comfort zone before, like literally going into meetings, like knowing all of my different options and what I was going to say. Not that I don't prepare for meetings. That's, it's like, but I've managed to work more towards the middle where I show up and, I'm prepared and what comes through, period. And then like, it's this one-on-one thing that's, for me, that's like the final frontier. Like in groups, it's fine, whatever. It is what it is. But the one-on-one or smaller, more intimate kind of meals where it's like, oh, this is, where I still sometimes I'm like, are they really telling me what they're telling me right now? Like, I'm like, I don't know if I would really share that, And
that's
I guess
me. That would be me. Hello. Pleasure to meet you. Why is she telling me about her husband's relapse? I just met her. And
So I guess different strokes for different folks. I'm just aware of it and seeing where my boundaries are, or where, where is, I heard recently there's the comfort zone, there's the growth zone, and then there's the panic zone, or there's that other zone where it's like, I've gone too far, and I think my trajectory right now is to just be in this like growth zone, which is like just slightly outside that line of my comfort zone, is like where I'm like slowly aiming, I think.
You helped me. You raised a really good point, because in my telling all my old stories that have the people intrigued, and that's what it was, like this girl, I was intoxicated off of her wanting to know more. It was intoxicating, She wanted to hear another story. Guess what? I have one. But the thing is like, there's no intimacy in that. So what? I'm like throwing all my cards on the table. It's still not what you and I are both trying to get to. It's still not emotional intimacy. Even if I tell the same old stories or tell about my past, that's not necessarily intimacy. Into me, you see. You've seen the stories of something that happened 7 years ago. Big deal. That's not into me, you see.
I have a question that it just popped up. I was on a date and I'm used to just like, let's have a shag and then sort it out, like, or not. Like, like, let's just have a shag and stop there. I've got plenty of friends, where I could find intimacy and vulnerability, or, whatever that is, you know?
Mhm.
But now I'm kind of like, no, let's start with a date and then see where that leads to. And so, like, it's totally uncharted territory for me. And so I was noticing that, like, the topic of conversation wasn't necessarily what I was interested in. And so I was like, there. And then, like, it's now hindsight. Like, I like doing the little recaps in my head. Like, oh, if I could wave a magic wand, what would I have liked to do differently? Not in a punishing way, but in this, like, growth opportunity of, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, actually, the topic was, like, really shitty. Like, I don't want to invest in, like, that kind of energy, you know? It was just, like, very negative. It was very, like, what's wrong, what's missing. It was, like, about other people, really, you know? And I've, like,
Mhm.
so it's like, I'm wondering if you have any tips and tricks. Like, is it like, like, I guess it's like, if I were to rewind, it would just be to redirect, like, and share my experience, or just redirect the whole topic. I mean,
This is so
God, dear
good. Oh my
Abby.
God. Oh, I love this. I seriously could do I could do one of those. I love that. I am so proud of you for dating. I mean, shout out. That's amazing. Miracle. Proud of you. The other thing is that I I I can just see you sitting there going, this conversation is not going how I've scripted it. This person needs to get on board with how
Hmm.
Sam would like to hear things through his ear holes, and you're not doing it right.
Hmm.
Which is just hilarious to me. But also, yeah, my time is precious. And before I would have sat through a conversation with a man that was negative, or him being toxic and talking about people to not hurt his ego.
Hmm.
Today, I'd be like, okay, well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Like, how about this? Have you heard about this? Are you
Hmm.
interested in Andrew Huberman? Have you listened to this podcast? Like, yeah, I would redirect the conversation and, take it from there. And if the person can't get on board, it's more information. It's like, great, cool.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't feeling, from this particular date, I wasn't feeling the vibe or connection or what, I was like, ugh. And I think I did mention, in hindsight, I think I always mention Andrew Huberman. But we didn't shift over because I think if I recall, we would have. I mean, I could talk about him for days, but, like, dude didn't know about
Yeah.
Huberman until
Yeah.
I brought it up.
Right.
Oh my God, that's funny. I'm gonna put this on our list, like, to do this as a
Oh
separate,
my
because
God.
this could be fun, like, sex and dating and sobriety. Like, hello,
Yeah, and
sober,
everyone
sober,
send
sober.
in your questions. Like, we will do it. I would love to have this. I have so much experience, strength, and hope, unfortunately.
It's AMA. Ask Misty anything.
Yes, yes, please. Please,
That's
this
gonna
is
be
my
our
favorite.
new episode. That's gonna be our new
My
episode.
favorite. I know we're at our final 5, and you did just do so good and give me a question, but I have a question for you.
Ooh.
When was the last time that you were vulnerable with your heart brain?
I would say, I think, like, our last episode, which wasn't that, which I would say our last episode. I think about, and if before that, I would say maybe in one of my meetings last week, where it's easier for me in, with a bigger group than it was, I went to a memorial this weekend, and then there was a smaller dinner that had, like, less than 10 people. And that was too intimate for me, where I was, lost in the stories and the, like, fun, fun and frivolous times before, and not necessarily able to get into my heart. How about you?
I mean, listening to you on the podcast has been amazing. There's been so many times where I think both of us have been vulnerable, but I've really noticed that you've pushed yourself out of a comfort zone to be vulnerable and sharing it, on what's getting to be a bigger and bigger scale. Thank you very much.
Mm.
But I think the last time I was vulnerable was a friend that I could tell I was getting annoyed by. And I was just answering her texts like really short and sharp. And I knew I didn't want to show up that way. And I like got in bed and was like going to go to bed. And I was like, that's not how I want to show up. And I got back out of bed and grabbed the phone and texted like just something vulnerable about how much the friendship meant to me and how grateful I was that we were even having those conversations. And I don't know if she received it the way it was intended or if we, we're even off track to get back on track. But I noticed that I was having the heart palpitations to send it. And then afterwards, my heart was just soaring. I just felt so good in my body, regardless of the outcome.
I love how there was this awareness and you shifted. It's like, oh, wow. That's a powerful practice where I'm like, wow, that's self-awareness where I'm like, let's try more of that for size.
We're so emotionally sober, Sam. What can we say?
Oh my God, so sober. So sober.
So sober. And you guys, y'all gotta go call your sponsor so you can be as sober as Sam and I, or you probably already are. Then just email us and tell us how much more you know than us. We're ready. What is it? At bcysponsor.com? What is it?
At BCY Sponsor, at BCY Sponsors Social, and then BCY Sponsor at gmail.com is the email.
Okay, we knew that. We were just checking y'all. Thanks, y'all, bitch. Go call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor.
Send us an email with comments, questions, or concerns, bcysponsor@gmail.com.
Don't forget to rate 5 stars.